This landscape looks straight out of a gimmicky science fiction film. A fiendish beauty masking one of the most inhospitable places on the planet. Sulphurous fumes, an acid river. This is the Danakil Desert in Ethiopia. Here, all signs of life have disappeared, or almost. Hunger is the only motivation for these men who brave the open road in unbearable heat, because there is a hidden treasure that lies in the Danakil Desert: white gold.
أنا درجة 10 عامتي. تبزح 100 قرشي. 200 قرشي ودينا. كابزي دك أب من اسمه أبلك خسرت سرنا جله أبلنا. جزء خانس أبينا مبين. كل جزء سرحين كركبي.
The salt workers earn €2 per day, barely enough to survive.
مقات بطعم هذي بطعمه مقاتي هذي ناقول نوت سنة بتصحي ناي صحي برهان نار حقا لمريت نقرس لقد بطعم مقات هذي حيالي.
Some days, the temperature reaches up to 50 degrees in the shade. The only problem being, there is no shade. Everybody cools down before beginning the 3-day expedition home. They will lead around 100 camels on the journey. It's much slower than a truck, but much more reliable, and above all, much safer. Ethiopian roads are amongst the most dangerous in the world. The infrastructure is often dated and worn, and the car and truck drivers have a golden rule that sends shivers down your spine.
ትንሽ መኪና ዞር ሲልበት ፍሬን ለመያዝ ነው የምትሞክረው። ፍሬኑ ደግሞ ያብሰዋል። ይበልጥ እንትኑን ያብሰዋል ዞርታው።
Whatever the mode of transport, Ethiopians risk their lives. These antique 404s barely have a functioning set of brakes, and the trains are no more secure. Built in 1917, this is the oldest railway in Africa, and inevitably, there are frequent accidents. This local train has a few surprises in store for its passengers in the middle of the desert. Ethiopia is said to be the birthplace of humanity. In its forests, man took his first steps, and today these forests are still home to savage and dangerous creatures. Dire Dawa station comes to life twice a week, from 5 o'clock in the morning. Each time, the atmosphere is tense. Nobody knows if there will be enough space in the carriages. There is no electricity inside the train. Victor, the driver, checks that all is as it should be with the engine, using a flashlight.
press here for accelerating the machines and braking for only the machines. This for braking with the rewards. This also braking for only the machines. Accelerating, accelerate. This is changing the direction when you go or back or front.
So everything isn't quite as disorganized as it might seem. There is a certain method to their madness.
A little bit way for the transport.
The train sets off on its journey, only half an hour behind schedule. An achievement. It takes on average 10 hours on the local train to cross the 310 kilometres to the little town of Güleli. In these carriages, it's an every man for themselves attitude. The more agile passengers tend to stay outside of the carriages, and the most daring of them play a dangerous game.
እንችላለን ምንም አይከብደንም እዚህ ላይ ስላደረን ሁሉም ነገር ላይ ወጥተን ነው እሱ እየሄደ አይላው ላይ የምንሄደው ምንም እንትን አይለን አይከብደንም ግን በማያውቀው ሰው ከብዷል ለእኛ ግን አይከብደንም ስለምናውቀው
የሆነ ዘመድ ነበር እዛ ቢለ መንገድ ያለ ወደቅ ሲወል ሞት የሆነ ብረት ጭንቅላቱ ላይ ገብቶ ይዘው እዛ ደውሎ ተቀበረው ለብቻ ያጅ ማጠብ አቃቸው ታስቀምጡ ሰዓት የዛፍ ስር ልጅ ወጣ አስቀመጠ ይሄ ለብቻ
The daredevils play with their lives, an absurd game, but that is their choice. The passengers themselves are not demanding. The train has no form of security. The carriages do not even have an emergency stop lever, so one has to keep one's wits about one. A return ticket costs €6, but some people are entitled to travel for free, like this 15-year-old teenager, Abeda. Abeda misses school twice a week to ride the train, but she's not just a regular traveller. Abeda is a cat seller. Almost all Ethiopians chew on these little bitter-tasting leaves. Cat is a drug that helps people to stay awake. The plant is prohibited in France. Competition is tough for Abida today. There are many cat sellers in the carriage. At each stop, the traders spring into action. The smell of fritters and spices fills the air. Disputes are inevitable. Apparently, these people don't quite agree about prices. Abida waits in the window for her customers. She doesn't want to give up her all-precious seat. The money pays for her education, and whenever there is some left over, the teenager gives it to her parents. The local train is a lifeline, sustaining thousands of families who live alongside its tracks.
ሰው ይሄዳሉ፣ ዕቃ ያመጣሉ፣ እዚህ ይሸጣሉ። በቃ ይሄ ነው። እኛ ደግሞ ጠቃሚ አይደለንም። ያው ዝም ብሎ ነው የምንሆነው። ምንም ስራ የለም። ባቡሩ እኮ ቆመ። ጥሩ ነው እንዳይቆም።
With the heat of the midday sun, the iron carriage becomes a red-hot prison cell. Inside, the passengers slowly bake. It's almost 40 degrees. Even with its windows and doors, the airflow is not sufficient to lower the temperature inside the carriages. A torturous heat, but a preferable one when compared to travelling in the original wooden carriages from 1917. The windows are high up. The air doesn't circulate. And there is more trouble to come for the 300 passengers. The train moves at 30 kilometers per hour on average. The old 1980s Alstom engine does what she can, but the 3 million kilometers of mileage are beginning to catch up with her. Victor is sure that the motor sounds unhealthy. Even for a diesel engine, this smoke is not normal.
The temperature is high. Garba, mukat no. Falla. Adellam, chise hota hai. Falla hai. Something wrong here. Also the oil, which gives the puissance of the machine 50%, till it is cooling down. All parts of the motor is hot. So just keep it until it's become cool. You haven't the chance. No. Your chance is not good. Okay. To repair it, just you have to wait. You have to need certain amount of time.
The passengers know all too well that repairing the train could take days. Some decide to continue on foot. If the train sets off again, it will catch them up. As for Victor, he gets back to the mechanics. The passengers turn to prayer, but each to his own God. For some, Allah, and for others, reggae. It's impossible to alert the train manager back at the station. Mobile phones don't work in the desert. Maybe he will send the rescue services once he realizes that the train has not returned. Ethiopia seems like one immense desert. It's no coincidence that the country is known as the Roof of Africa. Highlands covered with forest rise up in the centre of the country. Up here, rainfall is abundant and water is not a problem. However, elsewhere in the country, it's another matter altogether. 22% of the population do not have access to drinking water. Nathanael is a carrier of this precious liquid. Every day he travels to and from this spring, filling up these containers to sell them in his village. By some miracle, his trolley withstands the weight, even more so as Nathanael makes this journey 10 times each day. In total, he transports almost a ton of water. The 5-kilometre downhill stretch is busy with trucks. Children have started making their own versions of Nathanael's trolley, and their sliding technique will make you shiver. At 60 years old, each container is beginning to weigh double for Natanel, but he has no other choice if he wants to be able to eat every day. Further south lies the Kaffa region, and perched at 1,714 meters altitude, the large town of Bonga. This morning, Salomon, the truck driver, has not quite woken up yet. We can't say that he's the best judge of distance. Only a few crates of beer. Freight is not at the core of his job. In this part of the country, public transport is almost non-existent, so heavy trucks such as Salomon's are much coveted, even if ticket prices are extortionate. €2.50 per trip. A fortune for these farmers who earn just €1 per day.
ስንት ነው የቆረጥሽው?
እዚህ ብር ነው ያዝኩት። 100 ብር ነው የተቀበለው።
ለስንት ሰው? እከፍልልሻለሁ። ግቢ፣ እኔ እከፍልልሻለሁ። ግቢ፣ ችግር የለም። እዛ ትቀበያለሽ።
They will travel 60 kilometers in almost 10 hours, a seemingly endless journey. Some passengers will stand throughout, whilst others precariously balance. The luckiest passengers are seated on the truck floor. Preferable because at the slight push of the brakes, the standing passengers fly all over the cabin. But according to Salomon, there is nothing to fear. He has a second-to-none driving technique to avoid these kind of incidents.
እና ደግሞ በዚህ ማለት ትንሽ ፈሪ ከሆንክ የለም መኪናው ካንተ ቁጥጥር በላይ ነው። ፍሬን ምናምን አትጠቀምም። ፍሬን አትነካም ጭራሽ። በቃ ተገቢውን አንደኛ ማርሽ ሰጥተው እንትን ነው መሆን ያለበት።
10 kilometers on, this side is not looking good.
ቀንስ አንድ 10 ሰው አንድ 10 ወንድ ቶሎ በል ወንዶች የመጨረሻ ተባበሩ ይቅርታ።
Some of the passengers push, whilst others must continue on foot.
ያተም ከብዶታውን ልቁም እያለ ነው። በግድ ነው የሚሄደው። ሰው ልጆች ወርደው ተቀንሰው
Out of 36,000 kilometers of roads in Ethiopia, only 6,000 kilometers are tarmacked.
አንድ ዘንብ ነው አየር አሁን አየር ሲለወጥ አየር ለውጥ እዚህ አካባቢ ይሄ ነው ብለህ የምትጨብጠው እንትን አትናገርም።
The hours go by and Salomon is beginning to get tired. He chews on some cat. The plant stops him from sleeping, but it has another side effect, hindering his reflexes. And in this mud, the consequences of this could quickly turn dramatic.
መስከረም ወር ላይ ነው ገባው ከሰው ጋር የምታወቅ ገና እንትን ነው ሄድኩ እዚህ በዴቻ መስመር ነው ዛሬ መጀመሪያ ገባሁት ሄድኩ ጫም ሄድኩ በአንድ ወር አካባቢ ዝናብ ዘነበ አለኝ ዝናብ ደብሮኛል ልክ እንደዚህ 2 ኪሎ ሜትር እንደተጓዝ መኪናው ከቁጥጥር በላይ ሆነ በቃ ትንሽ እንዲ ኩርባ ከመጣ አክሲደንት ይከፋል
Here they have reached their destination. According to Salomon, 10 hours of travelling without an issue is relatively rare in Ethiopia. Whilst the roads are difficult and extremely dangerous, they carry 90% of the goods shipped within the country, and for good reason. The Ethiopian railway network is in absolute shambles, and not a day passes without a technical problem. The train between Dire Dawa and Gulili is still broken down in the middle of the desert. The 300 passengers have been waiting under the blazing sun for 4 hours now. But something is about to come to their aid. Victor the driver and his 2 assistants. They try to make repairs with the available equipment. They've worked for 4 hours with their tools. The passengers who got off the train to walk are their main hope. Have they been able to sound the alarm at the train station, and will they send a new train? But still, there's no one to be seen. The tracks stay silent. This funny device is used for track inspections, but this is not what will come to the train's rescue. It is far too light to be able to tow a multi-ton train. The only hope is the Dire Dawa train station, yet the place seems abandoned. The station is a relic from France's presence in the country. Virtually nothing has changed since its construction in 1917. These men do what they can to keep the old machinery alive. Here is the emergency rescue train. She is in no better state than the one stuck out in the desert.
ይሄ ከባድ ነው። አሁን በተለይ በጣም ይከብዳል። የስፔር ፓርት ችግር ስላለበት እያንዳንዷቸው ቤት ክሊራንስ አላቸው። ያን ክሊራንሱን ትለካለህ በእንቅስቃሴው።
All of these spare parts were taken from written-off trains. The mechanics must be extremely resourceful because there are no new parts being produced. Here, nothing is thrown away.
መቀመጫዎቹ አሉ አይደለም? ይሄ መቀመጫ መግበጥ እንትን መውጣት እንትን የለበትም። አዎ አይታል። እነዚህ እንጨቶች እስካመጣ ድረስ ይጠብቃሉ። ከእንጨት እስክናወጣ ድረስ ነው የሚፈልጉት አይደል?
This replacement is definitely not ready to come to the rescue of the train stuck in the desert. To get moving again, Victor the driver will demonstrate some ingenuity.
This is a balloon which is covering the eve of the turbo. This is fall down. Around here is just the rings. There is no spare part around here. That's how we try to repair, just to tie this one.
Be that as it may, there is something in this desert. Wood.
Just for trying. Okay. If possible, yeah.
With this piece of wood, Victor hopes to keep the train's turbo in place. And a miracle occurs. But this lucky makeshift repair may not last very long. For now, it seems to be one problem after the other. Victor is worried about the state of the tracks.
And the connection of this, which rise, it's not good. Fitting when they are assembled, there is a problem. They are not normally assembled.
Victor sends Unvigi ahead of the train, who keeps an eye out for any bent or detached tracks. Victor slows the train down from 30 to 20 kilometers an hour, and things are going better. These fallen over carriages show the negligence of previous drivers.
No, but there is no any alternative.
No choice.
No, you have no money to change this. It's just as a chance of matter of chances. Sometimes going to fall down. If the load is very heavy over the wagons, there's not very much to continue. Yes.
Yeah.
That's very dangerous.
The journey still holds many a surprise for them. The construction of this railway line in 1907 marks the start of the French cooperation. The French language entered Ethiopian schools in 1960. During this period, France also helped the country to draw up its own civil code. These are not the only handprints they left on the country. One of them lives on in the city of Arar. The Peugeot 404 isn't so terrible in terms of pollution. The car dates back to the 60s, 70s, but it is very robust.
እና ደግሞ ጭነት ይችላሉ አንደኛው ደግሞ ጥንካሬ ጭነት እና ስራ በደንብ ይሰራሉ ስራ አውቃለሁ ፔጆ ፍራንስ ነው
There are now hundreds of them driving around the streets of the city of Arar. The majority of these old cars are used as taxis. The car bodies creak and the brakes are worn out, but the solid car still runs well.
ኪሎሜትሩ ራሱ በዚህ ጋር ካቶ ነው መሄድ ብቻ ነው ላይ ሲያልቅና ወይም ሲበላሽ ነው የምትቆመው እንጂ መሄድ ብቻ ነው ተቋርጧል የተበላሽው ራሱ ጌጁ አይሰራም የለም
Salomon charges just 10 centimes per journey. If he asked for more, very few people would be able to pay. Taxis remain the most popular mode of transport.
በቀን አታውቀውም ያው ብዙ ነው ቢያንስ ወደ ብር ስትመነዝረው እስከ 400 ብር ትሰራለህ አሁን 405 ፋይብል ትርፍ ካለበት እስከ 6 ይችላል
According to Salomon, his taxi is the best dating agency in town.
Okay,
ያግባባል ትወያያለህ ተነጋገር ታይ ከዛ በኋላ ያው
ልጄን አንቺ ቀስ በጥይሽ
ለምን ሁሉም ምንም ከዚህ ጋር ነው ስለዚህ ይሄ ነው
The secret of the 404's rejuvenation lies here in a remote section of the town.
تو መጨረሻ ላይ ተቆልፏል አይቀመጥ እኮ እሱ መጨረሻ ቆልፍ ስንወጣ ተቆልፏል
ሽና ይወለና
ምን መቀየር አስፈልጎ
መቀየር ነው
ምን የመኪናው ሰዓት ጉልበት የሚያሳንሰው ነው ነው
ሞዲፊኬር በሞዲፊካ ነው በቃ እቃቸው ጠፍቷል አሁን እርስ በርሳቸው የተበላሉ ነው ሞዲፊካ እዚህኛውና ሞዲፊካ ነው ዞን እንትን የሚለው
የማይገኝ ሆነ ትቆምና ከተበተነ መኪና ወይም ከተበተኑ ከተቀመጡ የሚሸጡ አሉ አረጋይ እቃዎች ማለት ተበተኑ በየ
In the same way as the train, spare parts are ever more rare. In a few years' time, 404s will have disappeared from the streets of Arar. There was a time when it wasn't safe to hang around the streets of the city at night. The danger didn't come from suspicious people, but something much worse. To this day, in the town's outskirts, the night is filled with fear. Danger is always lying low in the dark. Only Mulugeta and his children can control this force that so terrifies the locals.
Nike, how? Nike, hello. Nay nothing. How? What to go by you? How? Nike.
They are the only ones to be accepted by the creatures of the night. Hyenas.
Nike. Nike. Nike, how? Nike, how? ጁማ ብላቱ ወረ በጣም ያስፈራል። አሁን ግን ምንም መስሎ አይታይም። መጀመሪያማ በጣም ፈራል ሮጥ ነበር እንዴ የጫካ አውሬ ያለ ጅብ ነው እኮ አባቴ። ጅብ በታሪክ የሰባት ፈረስ ጉልበት አለው ነው ይባላል። እና ይለያያል። አሁን እዚህ ጋር አንድ አደጋ ቢደርስ እቺ ምድር አልኩ አውጥ ያርግተዋት ይሄ ሁሉ የምታውቅ ቅጠል አይተርፍም። ቅድም እዛ ጋር አላሳየም ክርስቲያን ቄራ እዛ ነበር የሚሰራው እና እዛ የሚወዳደቅ የፈርሱ ላይ አጥንት ምናምን ሲደፋ ያያል።
Since the 19th century, a pact has existed between the hyenas and the residents of Arar. The residents allow the scavengers to invade the city at night to feast on their waste and litter, so that they stop attacking their flocks. Today, the hyenas no longer serve as garbage men, but the city continues to feed them. Just like his father, Mulugeta has brought them food every night for the past 26 years. There is complete trust.
Thank you. Oh, Nick. Oh.
There are now about 30 hyenas surrounding them.
እነዚህ ገና ናቸው። እነዚያው ነው ልጆቻቸው ከጥላት መከላከል ወይንም ሮጦ ማምለጥ እስከሚችሉ ድረስ ከዚህ ጋር እንቀሳቀሱ አያር እናቶቻቸውን ይኸው አሁን ይኸው አዛለው ይኸው ይኸው ሶል ይኸው በዚህ በል አየህ
Mulugeta sometimes makes a little money selling these babies on to zoos.
አልቀይርም አልተውም እስክሞት ወደፊት ፈጣሪ ካለ ወደ አንበሳ ነው።
The engine repair with a piece of wood seems to be holding up, but for how long? The train gently pushes on at 20 kilometers per hour, and there is 20 kilometers left of the journey. This means one more hour to go in the suffocating heat. The passengers protect themselves from the sun's rays as much as they can. Abida, the young vendor, has sold all of her cat, but she's worried about her vegetables. And the girl's problems do not end there. The motor suddenly shows a great sign of fatigue, shuddering and stopping as if struck down by the heat. Seeing the extent of the damage, this time the mechanics do not even take out their tools. But the passengers do set off. A group of 300 travellers decide to finish their journey on foot. Victor, the driver, suffers the ship captain's fate.
I am responsible for all of the people, the materials, the machines. So just stay here. Another machine.
How long, for how many days, Victor doesn't know. There's no waiting limit. To get to their destination, the town of Gulile, the trained castaways have another 20 kilometres to walk. One thing is for sure, certain merchandise will not arrive very fresh. Unless they use the camels that are taunting them along the way, they would be very useful indeed. Certain passengers have a special technique to capture these beasts, but after some reflection, they let them go. Here, they don't joke around with the region's camel thieves. Some passengers will take more than 10 hours to reach their destination. Others, exhausted, wait for the emergency train on the side of the tracks. It didn't arrive until the next morning. 500 kilometers away, the salt slaves are also preparing to get on the road. Their journey is trying, but contrary to the train passengers, they will not have anything to carry on their backs.
كلهم مطاعم خان فلتان 30 غنفر مالتي
30 غنفر
كله عندي عم دغنا يفلتان بغنفر يدغمت اللي براح عليه.
From this furnace, a legend is born. The legend that the sun makes its way across the sky thanks to a chariot drawn by horses of fire. One of these horses, Aitiope, gave his name to Ethiopia. Who knows? There could be truth in this legend with the immense heat that radiates over the country.